This is Raze Boombot from Valorant, and your boy's making one in real life. Valorant is a first-person shooter that constantly requires checking around close corners. Raze can use her Boombot to clear choke points and figure out the enemy's location.
I'm going to make a real, fully functional Boombot. So first let's figure out some of Boomy's key features.
Maybe the most defining feature is Boomy's animated face. The eyes are always changing shape, and the whole face even changes to a danger icon.
My first thought that comes to mind is to use a NeoPixel board.
Basically, a NeoPixel board is a matrix of LEDs, and you can program each light to light up however you want it to.
So I'm thinking I can program each face right onto the NeoPixel board.
Boomy can also drive itself, and it also has lights all over its body. So we're going to need a bunch of LEDs and some decent motors. Next, we have the collision detection system. Boomy bounces off of walls and is able to turn as it ricochets off of obstacles. This is an Arduino. You can think of it as the brain of the robot, and this is a limit switch. My printer uses them for homing. When the limit switch is clicked, it tells the printer's brain that the hot end is at the end of its travel path. If we strategically place these on Boomy to click when Boomy hits a wall, we can send the message to the brain and then tell Boomy's wheels to back up and turn. Notice how Boomy has a scanning laser. I found these red lasers on Amazon that I think are used for scanning barcodes. If I could attach this laser to a servo arm, I could easily recreate this feature.
You guys keep asking me, does it explode? Does it explode? You guys are gonna make me explode, Jesus.
Now that we have a general idea of how to do all this, I started to sketch out some of our ideas. The NeoPixel is 16 by 16 lights, right? So maybe we can create faces by grouping lights together. Here I'm trying to plan out exactly where to put the limit switches so the wheels can push on them when Boomy hits a wall. Now let's order some electronics that we know we're going to need.
Also, if you like the video so far, please throw me a like and consider subscribing. These project supplies are adding up pretty quickly, and your boy is not monetized yet on YouTube, alright? Alright, so the first thing we got is our NeoPixel board. Let's figure out how this works.
The board is 16 by 16 LEDs, right? So the first thing I did was map out in Excel exactly which LEDs I needed to light up for each face.
Next thing I did was write some really bad code to get each LED to light up.
I don't know how to code, so I literally just got like 100 commands to tell each individual LED to light up. I mean, it worked. That actually looks pretty good. Alright, I'm an idiot. I learned the right way to do this using an array. Now I just type in what cells I want to light up all on one line, and it works. Yeah, I'm stupid. I then tested the negative of my previous face, and I thought it looked pretty good, but then everyone on TikTok told me it looked like a pumpkin.
Alright, so this thing was a good starting point for us, but we really need a smaller NeoPixel board.
So I ordered a smaller one. I think this one's going to work a lot better. It's an 8 by 8 instead of the 16 by 16. I also printed out a bunch of different diffusers, some in clear PLA and some in varying thicknesses of yellow PLA. I decided on a 4mm thick piece of yellow PLA that's printed completely solid. It seems to get the job done. Now it's time to 3D model Boomy. Let's get it. The entire model was created while referencing some images of Boomy, but everything was built around the scale of the NeoPixel board at the center. Boomy has some really complex curves, so I surfaced the outer shell using splines. And here we are. Boomy is alive and well, guys. Yeah.
Alright, so Boomy is going to have two modes.
First, when Boomy is turned on, it'll switch between a couple of faces, and the top is going to pop up. I'm going to recreate this feature with the 4-bar linkage mechanism I designed. Basically, a servo is going to move the roof up and down to give Boomy some emotion.
I don't even have to test it because I know it's going to work. And if it doesn't work... Alright, so the next part of the design we're talking about?
The second mode will be button activated, and Boomy will drive forward with hobby motors looking for enemies. As Boomy is driving, the scanning laser is going to move up and down on a servo arm. Boomy also has a collision detection system. The wheels rotate, and when Boomy hits a wall, it will trigger a limit switch that tells Boomy to back up and pivot. The infrared sensor will allow Boomy to see humans, and it will attack anyone it sees, speeding up in the direction of the enemy. In the meantime, we'll start printing out Boomy. I printed these parts out on my two CR10S Pro V2s. Alright, so this is the 4-bar mechanism I designed to move the top hinge, and it works on my first try, dude. Look at this. So the servo's gonna drive it back and forward. Your boy's a freaking genius, yeah. I also got the scanning laser to work. Check this out. Someone on TikTok suggested I use an OLED display instead of a NeoPixel board because you can display animated GIFs. So we picked one up. Check it out, it's so awesome. But it's small as hell compared to the NeoPixel. Look at that, what the heck? Bro, this is one of the biggest ones they have too.
Someone else from TikTok suggested using a mini LCD display to display images with color.
These things are dope, man. They're nice and big, 3.5-inch size, and apparently are full color displays that you can show animations on. Dude, that looks so bad. Why does it look terrible? Bro, that is just not good. I think the Arduino doesn't have enough memory to process all the pixels on the LCD. Okay, so the animated GIF idea isn't gonna work. I was looking at the documentation for this thing and I found that you can animate shapes. This could work. Boomy's face is pretty simple. Boomy also has a little bit of a twitch effect going on, and I found this scroll page feature that could be useful. I'm not good at figuring this stuff out, but I am good at taking examples that already work and tweaking them to get kind of what I need. First, I started by creating basic shapes and getting the size and position correct. Then I inverted the colors and made the background yellow. Then I made the eyes blink by switching them from circles to horizontal lines quickly. Then I figured out the twitching effect by using the scroll feature back and forth really quickly and just looping it forever. Let's go, baby. I think this looks infinitely better than the NeoPixel, and the fact that I once considered using a NeoPixel is hilarious. The only issue with the LCD is that there aren't any holes that I could use for mounting. So I created this little adapter that I can slide into and that I can fasten down to the housing. The only issue is now there are awkward gaps between the LCD because it doesn't fill the whole front window. So I thought about filling those gaps with LEDs, but this was just getting too complicated. Okay, I really want to take Boomy for a test drive, so let's get him wheeled up. I installed all the motors and the wheels and also the limit switches. Alright, Boomy. Let's see what you got. Alright. Not that way? No. It's like twice the size of my head, dude. It's crazy, bro. This thing is also heavy as hell, and I don't even have the top on yet, bro. Okay, so Boomy's got gaps around the LCD. He's slow. He's heavy. He's too big. And I think he could be more screen accurate. I think I did a decent job in the beginning, but he could look more like the in-game model. So I redesigned Boomy, and I think it looks so much better. He's about 20% smaller, and I added some new features. I noticed the top hinge swings completely open when Boomy goes into attack mode. I found this cool concealed hinge online, and I created one for Boomy to swing the top open with the servo. Also, I made the side wheels have a double ring design. The inner ring is going to rotate and spin the LEDs, while the outside wheel rotates about a different axis to hit the limit switch for collision detection. Also, this model was built around the LCD, so now the front window is seamless. Now it's time to print the new Boomy out. Introducing new Boomy. Boomy looks amazing. I'm so glad I did a redesign. Boomy is definitely smaller and more like the in-game Boombot. Now there's no gaps surrounding the face window. Check out the concealed hinge. It works okay. It gets a little stuck, so I have to make some adjustments, but it's good for my first try. The dual ring design works great. It's exactly like I planned. Let's do a little test drive. Okay, so this is pretty good, but I still want Boomy to be faster. So I ordered a stronger motor with 4 times the torque. Boom Boom's gonna zoom zoom. Since I'm changing up the wheels, I might as well make the side wheels the actual wheels. Currently the wheels are using a dual ring design and the outer wheel is being used for the collision detection system. So basically I'm gonna have to come up with a new way to detect obstacles. One reason I avoided doing this was also because these motors come with tires and now I'll have to make custom ones. I think I'll try printing them in rubber in TPU. Or if that doesn't work, maybe cast some custom tires in a mold. Notice how the wheels deploy when Boomy switches modes. I want to make it so that when you squeeze on the side wheels, springs push Boomy's wheels out and let Boomy drive forward. I'm also hoping the springs help Boomy rock back and forth like in the game. I found this cool spring-loaded latch mechanism online. As you push on the mechanism, a pin moves about a heart-shaped groove, allowing the mechanism to lock in the crevices. This mechanism is restricted to linear motion in a singular plane. I'm wondering if I could modify it to work with angular motion to swing Boomy's wheels out. Boomy's wheels are at an angle while in a resting state. Then when you push on them, they swing out and allow Boomy to drive on the ground. I started sketching out what I thought the shape should look like. The piece that's moving needs to house the motor and wheel, and it could have features that slide along a track of the main body of the mechanism. I also need to make sure when it swings out in its final position, the wheels are flat with the ground. I started modeling my design in SolidWorks. The great thing about SolidWorks is you can apply make conditions and simulate the motion of the mechanism, which will save me a lot of time so I don't have to keep printing out pieces and prototyping. This part literally took me forever. It took tons of prototyping and problem solving to get this to work. I kind of guessed with how stiff my springs should be, and the initial springs were way too strong. I could barely wind up the mechanism. I ordered new ones and they work like a charm. Also, the springs were getting stuck in this slot that the motor mount slides through, so I printed washers to fix this. I also made the top groove component modular and separate from the motor housing, so I could quickly reprint and test out new grooves to make it perfect. In my research, I found this old Tony also did a push latch mechanism in one plane. His design had a cliff feature so that the pin could only move clockwise around the heart-shaped groove. The little cliff or difference in elevation forces the pin to drive in only one direction. I was about 80% happy with it at this point, but someone suggested using lube and now it works perfect. You guys have some great ideas. We're the best. We still have to add back in the collision detection system. These ultrasonic sensors will tell Boomy how far away he is from obstacles. Based on values these sensors provide, Boomy will know if he is hitting a wall at an angle or straight on, and then I'll be able to program Boomy to back up and turn. While we're adding new features, I'm also going to add a vibration sensor. I've never used one of these before, but I plan on putting one on the underside of the roof so it could smack Boomy awake, just like in the game, and the face will change. I updated the CAD to include the new mechanism, the new wheels in their tires, and the ultrasonic sensors. I printed out the new Boomy and set them all up. With my new motors, I needed to figure out a way to transfer the torque from the motor to the wheel. Basically, this guy goes spin. How do we transfer the spin to this guy? I originally planned on using this adapter that tightens down to the motor shaft, and then I was going to connect the adapter to the wheel with screws. But wait a second, your boy Dan is a giga chad. I realized I could just make the wheel have the exact same geometry of the motor shaft and press fit it onto the motor. Works like a charm. I also printed custom tires and TPU rubber for the wheels. This is the first time I did this and it was pretty dope. Here's the mechanism in action as you can push on the wheels and have them swing out. Let's see how fast the new Boomy is. What are you doing, stupid? When I started this project, I didn't want to use ultrasonic sensors because it would take away from the look of Boomy, but I actually think it looks pretty cool. Boomy's looking like a boombox. I also noticed that Boomy still isn't rocking back and forth. I thought maybe I could add springs at the interface between where the wheels fasten down and the body sits to make it bouncy. It didn't work exactly as planned, but there's definitely something here. We need a way to disrupt the normal motion. My first idea was to design a mechanism that pushes Boomy's wheels back and forth with a servo. But the inside is already so cramped and complicated, we need a better and simpler solution. Someone on TikTok suggested using a rouleau triangle instead of a perfect circle for the wheels. As the rouleau triangle rotates, the centroid moves in a circle instead of staying still. Let's try out these Dorito wheels. That's where it's at, yo. Where you going, Boomy? That looks really good. I actually thought there was a little too much rocking, so I tried out wheels with 2 points instead of 3, kind of like a football shape. Also, the motor axis isn't centered, so every time it makes a full rotation, it should cause a lot of movement. I thought this motion looked a lot more natural and rhythmic, which kind of matches Raze's character. But to be honest, I like both. So I posted a poll on TikTok and asked the community which they preferred. Almost 40,000 people gave their input and helped make this design decision. Thanks for helping me pick the winner. Next, I worked on fixing the top roof hinge. My first version was pretty good, but the mechanism just misses being able to swing completely open on its own. So I hopped into SOLIDWORKS and redesigned the mechanism. I simulated the mechanism until I knew it'd be perfect. I reprinted the mechanism and now it works great. Next, I worked on programming the scanning laser. This was pretty simple. I just needed to rotate a servo motor at the right angle. This was a small feature to add, but I think it looks so cool, especially in the dark. For the collision detection system, I needed to pick a sensor. The ultrasonic sensors emit sound waves, while these time-of-flight sensors emit lasers. Basically, they both measure the time it takes to emit something, hit an object, and then return, which can help calculate a distance. I started with ultrasonic sensors, and they're working pretty well. I programmed Boomy to back up and turn whenever something was too close to Boomy. These turns were a little too big, so I decided to make the turns a little bit sharper. I did notice that Boomy was getting some misreadings, causing Boomy to turn when there was no wall in front of him. Ugh, Boomy, I'm gonna throw you off a cliff. I learned that ultrasonic sensors can be unreliable, so I tried the time-of-flight sensors. I know this clip doesn't show it, but this version was also getting misreadings with the time-of-flight sensors, even after making the current sensor reading an average of the last 3 values. I thought that would work. Also, because these sensors use light, they'll always be somewhat unreliable around sunlight and surfaces that aren't perfectly white. So I decided to switch back to ultrasonics because I do want to take Boomy outside. After learning a ton about how these work, I made some big changes. I included a third middle sensor, so if the left or right sensor sees a wall, the middle one has to confirm the wall is actually there. The chances of a side sensor and a middle sensor having a false positive at the same time are pretty low. I also angled them slightly upwards to reduce possible false readings bouncing off of the ground. The combination of all of these things fixed Boomy, and now he doesn't get any misreadings. So you remember this guy that said he was a giga chad? Well, turns out he's a big dumb idiot. The press fit idea was cool in theory for the wheels, but as the motors are driving, I think they warm up and heat the plastic, causing the friction fit to loosen, which makes this happen.
Awesome.
So I went back to the motor adapter idea, and now the wheels are tightly secured with set screws, and I've had way less issues with the wheels falling off. So right now Boomy uses sound to locate surrounding obstacles. My plan was that once Boomy saw a human, those sensors would switch to looking for people. This is an issue though because you have to be close to the sensor. They'll also have a narrow angle of view which creates blind spots. They can't tell the difference between obstacles and humans. And also, what if the target moves quickly out of the way?
Basically, this method sucks for chasing humans.
I found this OpenMV camera that uses computer vision to recognize faces and detect humans. Using one of these methods, I can tell Boomy to steer based on what the camera sees. Although I'm worried the camera will be too low to the ground and I won't be able to see faces accurately when I'm right near a target. What we really need is some sort of device that can detect the most amount of heat energy. I found this thermal camera and I think it's going to work great. That way I can just tell Boomy to move in the direction that is detecting the most amount of heat, and this should work even if Boomy's just looking at my feet. Anyways, I ordered both and we're going to see what works. I have a feeling the thermal side is going to be the winner, but even if I don't use the computer vision camera, I think I'll use it whenever I make a Killjoy turret. I got the thermal camera and mounted it to Boomy. Let's figure out how this works. Basically, the heat camera outputs a 32 by 24 grid of temperature data points. This was a lot of data, updating like 4 times a second, so the refresh rate is pretty slow. I'm hoping it'll be fast enough to work. So my plan is for Boomy to see the temperatures, figure out which spot has the most heat points close to the human body temperature, and then map a midpoint. If that midpoint is off center, Boomy will turn to correctly center the midpoint. My algorithm will also prioritize areas with the most heat points next to each other, so hopefully it'll not care about other hot things in the room.
Let's go. Holy crap. That took forever.
After Boomy was equipped with his new thermal sight, he decided to make some new friends. I decided to take away the football shape of the old wheels and increase the center axis offset more dramatically. Well, don't need these wheels anymore. I'm hoping I can get more speed out of a perfect circle for wheels. I think I like this wobble way more now, and it has good speed. However, this only works when both wheels are 180 degrees out of sync. But Boomy has been popping wheelies lately, and I'm pretty sure that's because the wheels sync up and are pushing a lot of momentum back and forth at the same time. I even tried using these counterweights made for cameras, and it didn't really help. So I thought maybe I could make one wheel offset and one wheel regular. I'll still get the wobble motion I want without the syncing issue. And it worked. I lost a little wobble, but honestly I love how janky it looks. I also programmed my boards to talk to each other through serial communication. When a human is seen, the roof will hatch open and the boom icon will come on. If there isn't a human inside anymore, it'll go back to normal. I also took time to learn how to use the vibration sensor. I taped it under the roof and programmed Boomy to wake up when knocked on.
The last feature I want to add is a color explosion.
When Boomy explodes in game, he shoots out all different colors of paint. This made me think of colorons, and I was thinking I could create an explosion with the powder they use. So I ordered some. So I created a color launcher design. You load the color powder in the chamber and it's attached with springs to the launcher. So you pull back the color chamber and it goes zhit, bing, creating a color explosion. This is my first prototype of the launcher. The spring force feels pretty strong, so I'm thinking I'll be able to launch a good amount of color powder.
It sucks.
The springs aren't strong enough to launch the powder, and it kind of just jumps out instead of dissipating into the air.
LeBron James.
I did a quick test with the can of compressed air used for cleaning keyboards.
That's what we need.
I was able to create a new solution with the help of some of my followers and the genius from the Amazing Labs. This new design uses CO2 cartridges, a bike tire inflator, and a 3-way straw nozzle I designed to shoot the color powder with the click of a trigger.
Holy, that was a good one.
I redesigned the nozzle to be taller and I added a spiral effect so the powder releases at an angle instead of straight up. I also printed it in clear so I could see the powder loaded in each chamber.
3, 2, 1. Holy crap, that was sick. You ready?
Yeah.
1. Is that sick?
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
The last step for Boomy is to figure out a way to release the bike tire inflator lever electronically.
The plan is to attach a motor to the trigger and connect the motor to the base with some thread. This will create a pulley motion, and the tightening of the thread will pull the trigger down and release the color powder. I attached the servo motor to the launcher with some JB weld and tested it out. The servo motor wasn't strong enough to pull down the trigger, so I brainstormed and attached a larger motor with 6 times the power, and I upgraded to fluorowire instead of thread. And it works. The nozzle is a weird shape, so I reprinted the nozzle with legs and attached the whole thing to Boomy's body with Velcro. The color powder release kinda sucks. When I was pulling the trigger, I exacted a lot of force in a small amount of time, and the CO2 shot out really quickly. But the motor can only move so fast.
Probably the best way to do this is with a solenoid valve.
These let you release tiny bits of air at a time, which would be perfect. However, CO2 cartridges have tons of pressure, like 850 psi. In order to do this safely without blowing my hand off, you would need a regulator, or a larger battery to operate a stronger solenoid that's rated for higher pressure, both of which cannot fit into the cramped space of the body.
We need a simpler and easier solution. One of my genius followers suggested what I'm gonna call the tooth yank method.
I wrapped rubber bands around the bike tire inflator so that the CO2 will always want to be released. Then I printed out a small tooth shape of plastic that is wedged under the trigger to hold it up and prevent it from activating. The servo then yanks the tooth out and the trigger is forced down by the rubber bands, releasing all the CO2 in one swift motion. I also decreased the diameter of the nozzle pipes to create more pressure.
That's pretty good. See it? Go!
And now for the final part you've all been waiting for. That's right, the explosive. Jump. This is a jumping robot, and it weighs less than a tennis ball. We've reduced Boomy's weight a ton, but he still weighs about 5 pounds. A jumping robot is a huge project in itself, so unfortunately that's one component we'll have to leave out.
Or maybe it's a project for future Dan.
I always order everything off Amazon, but I decided to check out Home Depot's spray paint selection.
Alright, something like this is good for this orange. I might need something darker for something like this.
They had basically every color I needed for pretty cheap.
Think I got enough?
Now it's time to sand and prime Boomy to get him ready for paint. I start with the low grit on an orbital sander to remove most of the layer lines. Then I use some wood fill to get rid of large gaps. And I layer in Duplicolor filler primer until Boomy's nice and smooth. Sanding takes forever, but it's definitely worth it. Time to throw on some paint. Boomy has some detail lines that I had to trace out and then tape over. A frickin' boog landed on Boomy. Time to take off the tape and see how much I messed up. That actually looks pretty good. I really like how the orange splashes against the teal. I had to go back in and hand paint some black lines. But overall, I think Boomy's looking pretty awesome. I'm definitely not amazing at painting. It's actually super hard, but I'm learning a lot. I really like the aftermath of what my painting table looks like. I also decided to 3D print an Elderflame Vandal for my final cosplay. Just a disclaimer for YouTube, this is a prop. And in the next scene, I add VFX on top of it. Please do not get mad at me, YouTube. Now let's see what Boomy's made of.
I need a break. Let's play some Valorant. What the heck is that? What? Okay. Brimstone.
Bombuddy out. 6 months ago, I had the idea to make Raze Boombot from Valorant in real life. And today, I'm holding it in my hands. And you know, I think this is why I like making things so much. I'm so proud of myself for bringing my brainchild to reality. It's an amazing feeling to be able to walk past something in your room that you made with your own two hands and that you're super proud of. I started this project to learn more about electronics, and I did that and way more. I honestly feel like I've learned more from this project than my entire time at college. While editing this video, I was laughing at myself for how bad the original Boombot looked. But you know what? That's fine, and that's actually part of engineering. I'm super proud of this final product, and 10 projects from now, I'll probably look back on this and think of all the things I could have done better. Engineering aside, I'm actually most proud of what this means for me as a creator. I'm coming up on 2 years of making content, and this is the first time I feel like everything has clicked. I've realized I can combine my passion for 3D printing and engineering to make awesome inventions and recreations from my favorite video games and movies. And I love including you guys in the process. You guys have some amazing ideas. With every road bump I encountered, my comments were filled with suggestions helping me problem solve. To be honest, Boomy feels more like a group project than my own passion project. All of this helped me realize that my best product will always be something that you guys have a hand in. I'm never gonna know everything, so why not involve a community that wants to help and give advice from their experiences? And don't get discouraged if you want to help but you aren't an engineer. I get some of my best advice from non-engineers, and in fact it's sometimes better because you can think outside the box. It could even be like, oh hey Danny, I saw Mark Rober do this thing this way, but I didn't see his particular video, so that's actually really helpful for me. Without you guys, I would probably be stuck with this hunk of plastic I used to be proud of. But seriously, thank you guys so much for following this journey, and I can't wait to see what else we make together. Because you guys were so helpful and supportive, I've decided to make all of my files totally free. In the description of this video, you will find a link to download all the STL files for free, accompanied by detailed instructions with the parts list, wiring diagrams, and pre-written software ready to upload. If you're worried you don't have the experience to rebuild the Boomy, I've made another simpler version. I've simplified the design, and in terms of features, it only has the face, which is probably the coolest part. It will be plug and play, which means you just order the parts, upload the pre-written software, and then you have your own simple Boomy. If you don't have your own printer, maybe you could start saving for one. You could get a good starter printer nowadays for less than $200. You could also order the parts from somewhere like Shapeways that print the parts for you and then ship it to you, but at that point I'd probably just save for my own printer. This is my passion, and I'd seriously love if I could do it full time. In an effort to support that, I've started a Patreon. This will include an exclusive Patreon Discord community. I've had tons of people wanting to build their own Boomy, and I thought it'd be really cool if we could all post our builds of Boomy in the Discord and chat about the build process. As for perks, you'll get access to extended cut versions of my videos, including this one. This version includes a ton of other problems I solved and a bunch of other bonus content and bloopers. It also includes a video format of the instructions for Boomy. You'll be the first to be updated on my projects, and you'll be more involved in my design decision-making process. I'm still deciding what to make for my next build, so if you have any cool ideas, let me know in the comments. I've also been asked how to get started with learning all of this, so I've decided I'm going to start working on some classes where we can build a project together and you can up your skills through project-based learning. I think that'd be really cool for me to take what I learned and share it with you guys, so be on the lookout for that. That being said, thank you all again for helping make Boomy the best final product possible. Make sure you subscribe to see all the other crazy inventions we build together. And for the final time, Boombot out.